Today I fucked up by getting a black eye in the stupidest way possible. So I accidentally gave myself a black eye. Though technically my husband gave it to me. We were preparing to be intimate. Clothes were flying in all directions, hearts were pounding, you know how it goes. Well, I decided to gift my husband with some well-deserved oral. I got down on my knees and he let me go to town. All was going great. I must have either been getting too into it, it was dark, or he was adjusting his position, or some combination of all the above. Next thing I know, he's out of my mouth a few inches higher than he was a few seconds ago. I'm still in full head bob mode. Without realizing he's moved. Wham! Slammed my eye right into him. Basically was like he was trying to face fuck my eye socket. It hurt, but we were both dying of laughter. He finished up and went to the bathroom to clean up. Huge black eye. I looked like a raccoon. Now everyone who sees me is asking what happened. They don't believe me if I say it was a stupid accident. They want a better explanation. Not sure if telling the truth will make it better or worse. Ladies, hand-eye coordination. Learn it. Could save your face someday. Too long didn't read, was giving husband oral, accidentally impaled my face on his junk and got a whopper of a black eye from it. As a teenage boy at a martial arts class I somehow managed to karate chop myself in the groin so badly I fainted from the pain. To know the song of the less than coordinated. Tell them some dick ran into you in a dim room. I wouldn't discuss it at work. That's just really bad optics. I see what you did there. May have not. I've kneed myself in the eye during sex. I feel your pain op. No one believed it wasn't from my fiance except my mother because I kneed myself in the face while reading a book as a kid and she remembers. Now your husband is gonna tell all his friends that his dick was so good, it made you blind. Today I fucked up by importing bees to Uruguay. This has all been happening over the last few weeks, but I've just gotten back to the States and had the time to take it all in. First, some context. I'm a grocery store employee from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Over the COVID pandemic I was burnt out and acting impulsively. I made some risky investments which destroyed me financially. Sick of my mundane life in the Great Plains and with economic mobility out of reach in America, I decided to move to Uruguay where I had citizenship through my stepfather. I figured the small amount of savings I had managed to keep would go further in South America, and I'd be able to start a modest business. I had recently read a book about beekeeping, and had this romantic image in my head of a life out in the country, tending to my hives and selling honey at the local farmer's market. Problem, I had no money or technical know-how. I found a solution I believed could solve both of these. I entered an informal agreement with an ecology professor in Montevideo, which I believed was binding. This was my downfall. In exchange for letting his grad students conduct research on my cousin's farm in Cerro Largo, he would pay for me to import Apis cerana honeybees from Myanmar, and show me how to set up an apiary. These bees had never before been farmed in the region, and he believed it could make an interesting research paper. The bees arrived quickly and we soon had a respectable apiary established. Bees usually don't start producing honey for at least a year, so I was mostly spending my time helping my cousin with his other farm projects, and trying to find a part-time job in Melo. Things seemed to be going well until the professor and his team stopped showing up. I tried contacting him, but he wouldn't return my calls either. A few days later, 2 MGAP agents showed up and informed me that I was under investigation for the illegal importation of an invasive species to Uruguay. I explained my situation with the university, but I think it was the professor who had turned me in. Of course, the word of a respected ecologist was taken over that of an American Jew who had arrived in the country 2 months prior. Turns out, the bees had shown up at a few other farms in the area. Authorities were concerned they could destroy the local colonies, which have already been on the decline recently due to climate change. I was in over my head, so I ran. I arrived at the airport paranoid out of my mind. Even though I was mostly likely in for nothing more than a hefty fine, I felt like Frank Abagnale. I boarded a flight to Los Angeles and landed in the US with $14 in my bank account. My friend was able to Venmo me $100, which unfortunately wasn't enough to get to Tulsa. I found a flight to Seattle for $75 and took it without thinking. I am now writing this from the train out of the airport. God help me. Too long didn't read. I imported an invasive species of honeybee to Uruguay and got in trouble with the authorities after a university professor ghosted me. The gourd man never fails to deliver. As an Uruguayan, do WTF. My main concern here is what is going to happen to your cousin. You said it was his farm the bees were on, so isn't your cousin going to get fucked because you bailed? Yeah, not only family screwed, but untold ecological disaster potentially with native bees already on the decline. If pollination is disrupted there and agriculture screwed in years hence, we'll have heard it here first. Why can't you just beehive like a normal person? Today I fucked up by smoking weed before my grandpa's funeral. I know the title makes me look like a very bad person, but hear me out. My grandpa passed away, and as I was pretty close to him, I was very sad. He lived in a city about 4 hours away, so me and my family drove there to stay for a couple of days. On the day of funeral, as we were packing food and things to take to the graveyard, my uncle lit up a joint in a garage. I should also say that I do smoke occasionally, so I do have tolerance for it, or so I thought. Took maybe 3 puffs. Considering I usually smoked the whole joint by myself, I thought it would help me out to get over the grief and not be high. I was very wrong. I don't know what the fuck was in that joint. It hit me immediately and in about 10 minutes I was so fucking blazed I could barely stand on my own. That's where the paranoia really hit me. We got into a car and drove to the graveyard. At this point I am having a full-blown fucking trip. Him sitting by the window and my heart is jackhammering in my chest. We arrive at the graveyard, and the ritual began. Women and men crying and grieving, and I try my hardest not to look like I'm about to fucking die. I can barely stand on my feet, and my paranoia is off the roof. You need to understand that nearly all my relatives are there, and here I am, occasionally checking my heartbeat to see if I'm still alive. And my anxiety is kicking up because I keep thinking that everyone knows I'm stoned out of my fucking mind. After about hour and a half we start going back home. I thought the feeling would go away after about an hour. It didn't. We arrived at the garage and I ate 3 cucumbers with about half a bottle of ketchup, and gave an excuse of being really tired to go and sleep it off. I couldn't sleep for about an hour because when I closed my eyes, my head would just spin uncontrollably and I felt like vomiting. So I tossed and turned, before finally falling asleep. Woke up about 6 hours later. I'm still high, but at least I can function as a person. I got something to eat and then we drove back to our city. The strangest thing is, no one fucking noticed I was higher than a C-tier celebrity's ego. I somehow acted pretty normal while having a full-blown trip. Maybe because I was known as a quiet and introverted guy normally. TL, doctor, I smoked a joint with my uncle before my grandpa's funeral. I got very fucking high and somehow managed to survive and not get noticed by all of my relatives. You aren't the only one, my friend. When my dad died, we were very close, so there was never any doubt in anyone's mind who should give the eulogy, except mine maybe. My father was the art instructor at a community college for 22 years, and I was not alone in thinking he was awesome. We expected heavy attendance, so we had the service at the college in the auditorium. The morning of the service arrives and everyone is concerned for me and the public speaking I must do. They decide to help, all of them. My mom gave me a Valium. Best friend, booze. Sister, Ativan. Brothers, weed. I don't really remember the service. It's mostly a series of images. I don't remember anything I said except they laughed when I was trying to be funny and cried when I was being poignant. Everyone said it was great. As I got down from the stage and into my seat, my 8-year-old daughter crawled up into my lap and passed out. So did I. Nobody noticed except my wife. The irony is my father was a raging alcoholic. Not typical. He was never mean to anyone but himself. So I figure he'd approve. Hope that helped. Oh man, sorry for your loss. Combining benzos, booze and weed must have been a horrible experience. 3 cucumbers and a bottle of ketchup. Just act normal. I swear to God it's your environment in these scenarios. No matter your tolerance, every time I've tried to get normal high before an unfamiliar and or stressful environment, such as a funeral for someone dear, the high is augmented, deleted. Sorry for your loss, but having to Google how to eat is hilarious. I had a bad trip in Amsterdam and pretty much had the same experience minus the eating. For some reason I convinced myself running up and down the hallway of the hotel would make it stop, which it didn't. Lesson: don't buy weed from coffee shops without a local. I've been given the same stuff 3 times in a row, with the same effects, even though I asked for a mellow strain. Running down a hallway? No. 1. Masturbate. 2. Take a shower. 3. Nap. If they noticed something off, they probably would have attributed it to grief. I'm sorry for your loss.